Hi, this is Joy at Pine Quilt Shop. Today we're going to talk about how to cut plush fabrics. So any of those plush fabrics that we love to use for quilt backings and quilt tops, so Fireside, Minky, Cuddle, all of those fabrics that have that lovely fuzzy nap that makes them so snuggly. Now when you cut those fabrics with a rotary cutter, the way that a rotary cutter works is it has to compress the fabric between the blade of the cutter and the cutting mat. So if I take a rotary cutter and I cut a piece, and this is a piece of C3 Cuddle that I'm working with. If I take a rotary cutter and I cut that, I have to compress the entire piece of fabric between my rotary cutter and my mat. So I'm going to have that fuzziness left behind where I cut through all the nap of that plush polyester fabric. The way that I like to cut these is to cut them from the back side, and I like to use this knife from Olfa. It's called the Sac 1 knife, and it is very much like an X-Acto knife if you've ever worked with that. It has a super sharp pointy blade on it. So this knife is much sharper, has a much pointier blade than a typical box cutter. You might look at it and say it kind of looks like a box cutter, but it really is very different because it has that super sharp, very pointy blade. The nice thing about this too is the blade can be broken off. You can see an illustration here, but there's actually 7 segments to the blade, so you can keep breaking it off and getting a new sharp point for quite a while. And you can get replacements for this knife as well. So if you do get through all 7 of your blades, you can get a full new replacement also. But the Sac knife will cut with that sharp point without having to go all the way through and contact the mat. So what that creates then is less nap being cut through, and so you've got less of that fuzzy mess that you sometimes find you have when you're working with these fabrics. So you can take this blade and you can run it right along the side of your ruler just like you would a rotary cutter. I'm going to put my finger down here because I've got to put a little tension on the fabric, and then I'm going to run with my blade, and you can see that I cut it, and I have much less fuzz on my mat than I did before because I wasn't going all the way through the nap. It will make a huge difference if you're cutting those really, really thick, fuzzy, almost like a fur type Cuddle fabrics that have the, the really deep nap. It will make a big difference in the amount of fuzzy mess that you have if you're just kind of cutting through that backing fabric instead of cutting all the way through all of the nap too. You'll cut less of the nap off, and that's what creates the fuzzy mess, is the nap that you're cutting through. So a quick tip for doing cutting Cuddle with a little less mess. My other suggestion is to always, when you're done, just take the pieces that you've cut, step outside the door, give them a good shake outside, and then bring them back into your sewing room to sew. Thanks for joining us today.